I hope you had a good rest. Second day, last day of the GPF, and as you heard, we had a very tight schedule. So let's dive directly into this conversation. We have three questions to Susanne Dorazil, who is not only the Director for Financial Sector Development and Private Sector in the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. She is also representing Germany on the G20 and specifically on the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion, and she has done that for quite some time. So we are very happy to have her with us to briefly update us on G20 relevant issues. Now, the first question I wanted to ask Susanne, before she maybe tells us what happened in St. Petersburg and where we are going to go, will be what does AFI have to do with the G20, and what does G20 have to do with AFI? So what is the connection?
Yeah, thank you, Alfred. And is it working?
It's working, yeah.
Thank you. And first
No,
of all,
not yet. Again?
Is it working? Yeah. Now it's working. I would like to thank you, Alfred, and the audience for having the opportunity to talk here. As Alfred mentioned, as a co-chair of the GPFI, but also Germany, and a supporter of AFI from the German Development Cooperation side. So what are the links to AFI? First of all, personal links, of course, in terms of country members. I'm looking at a lot of colleagues here in the audience that are colleagues also in the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion. So there's a bit of an overlap of G20 and AFI members, of course, but most importantly, we have a joint objective. The joint objective is promoting financial inclusion, and I think that's the strongest bond. We have some shared activities when it comes to outreach to standard-setting bodies, to work in working groups on certain issues like SME finance, consumer protection, or looking at indicators to track progress for financial inclusion. And of course, a strong bond is AFI is an implementing partner of the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion, and particularly with our understanding that AFI can help channeling the voice of countries and country institutions and developing countries. And last but not least, I would like to mention that in the communique of the G20, I just looked at the paragraph 78. It says, from the G20, we welcome the discussion of the AFI members to establish the organization as an independent international institution. So there's a strong support from the G20 as well to that process AFI is undergoing.
Mm-hmm. Now, the question is, of course, I mean, we all are aware that financial inclusion apparently is very high on the agenda of the G20. When you look back, I think it started out in Pittsburgh 2009, and then it went through, you know, the various presidencies through. We saw Korea, we saw France, Mexico as presidents, and then now we are with Russia, and see, financial inclusion is still up there. And this is quite unusual, I think, that we have such a continuing priority by the leaders on this issue. I think it's actually good for us. Now, the question is, after such a long time of financial inclusion on that political agenda, what could the summit actually bring new to us? Is there anything new? Is there anything that is remarkably different, or is it just a continuation? So what did St. Petersburg bring for us?
Remarkably different. You mentioned already that financial inclusion is still on the high political agenda, and that's quite remarkable, particularly from a development cooperation point of view. I think in 2009 we started off with an expert group. We had some words on financial inclusion, but now we really in the mainstream finance minister's agenda. So now we expanded to 3 big paragraphs, which is, if you know, G20 communiques, although they're getting longer, but still it's not something easy to really to get into the communique and get the messages across, and the messages in terms of all topics we picked up from principles to basic standard set, which has been extended. And I think you had a presentation from our colleague Roloff from South Africa on the new extended basic indicators. The first one was endorsed in 2011 at the Cannes Summit, and now we have an indicator set of 24 indicators which are now looking not only at access but also usage and quality of services, and that helps countries to measure progress depending on the circumstances they're coming from. We have maybe one thing also which is remarkable, that financial inclusion is still a priority because it very much links to the overall economic agenda of the G20, particularly when you look at SME finance. SME finance is instrumental for economic growth and job creation. And jobs, there were separate meetings of G20 finance ministers and labor ministers, very much at the forefront of the G20 concerns how to create job in countries, and particularly for the youth. And just to highlight a few, and then under the Russian presidency, a topic which we discussed was highlighted was consumer protection and financial literacy, taking it on also from the Mexican presidency, and a lot of reports were published also to track progress on financial inclusion, financial literacy. And all these documents will be available, of course, at the G20, but also GPFI website. And maybe one other thing I would like to highlight, which is also showing the deepening of the financial inclusion agenda, that the continued outreach to the standard-setting bodies. And now it seems to be fairly normal to have a discussion not only about stability and integrity, but also about financial inclusion. And the GPFI is very happy that AFI also uptake the ISIP challenge, if you know, and the discussion. And we already had in Cape Town the last AFI policy forum and linked to our GPFI forum discussion on the basis of a South African example. And new ISIP studies are being undertaken now. And that's really a big achievement. And you had talks here with the standard setting bodies, and the subgroup working with the standard setting body has extended its engagement also with IOSCO and is going to continue. And the intention is also to update the white paper that was produced in 2010. And I think that's from a development point of view a big achievement. So that basically now we have a circle of central banks, supervisors, finance ministry, development ministries talking together and trying to promote financial inclusion. I think that's one of a big achievement.
Yes, I agree with you. This is a big achievement. And when I look at the various work streams under the GPFI, I think all these issues have, in fact, more or less to do with what AFI is doing. We have the first work stream, which is apparently on principles and SSBs. There's the other work stream, which is basically dealing with data and measurement. We have the SME finance work stream, and I think the Russian presidency very much supported the introduction of a fourth work stream, which is consumer protection and financial literacy. So we have a full spectrum of issues that I think the AFI members are also working on, and I think we have managed to connect some of our working groups quite nicely to the work streams of the GPFI. Now, my question is, after all this and what I just said, what else can come? I mean, now we have Australia coming. As the next president, we know that Turkey will be the presidency following on Australia. We are aware that, at least from what we have heard informally, that there will be a continued emphasis on this topic. Are there already any foreseeable directions? Is there anything else to be added? Other work streams possible? Other financial inclusion priorities? Where do we go from here under the G20, Susanne?
The biggest challenge, I think, this year was that we had from Seoul still a multi-year action plan on development, where financial inclusion was one of the main pillars. Now there was these pillars were consolidated because there were 9 altogether. And now we've got a St. Petersburg Outlook, it's called. It's a document also posted, which shows the new priorities in the development agenda of the G20. And of course, we're very glad that financial inclusion still is a priority. I'm very confident that it's not going to be priority just for the coming presidency, but for the next one, then after that as well. And maybe what is new is that we now included in the financial inclusion work also work on remittances, which was undertaken by the G20. So we have to see how to integrate it and give a push to reduce the cost on remittances and on transfers. And we have also probably, it looks like, a closer look that's mentioned also as new activity in the St. Petersburg Outlook, how we can harness emerging mechanisms such as electronic payments and mobile technology for increasing access, to have a closer look at this, while also to continue our work on, not only SME finance, but financial literacy and consumer protection. And we will have, in the end of October, 21st, 22nd, a GPFI meeting in St. Petersburg, and also our Russian colleagues who are here also preparing a financial inclusion conference linked to it. There we're going to discuss more detailed activities. There's still space to concretize in the different work groups activities. And personally, I think what you said, what is new, what we have to show, I think there's a lot of analytical work being done. And right now, and it's particularly the focus on the subgroup I'm co-chairing together with, of course, with Korea and Turkey, to put a stronger emphasis on the second track, which is country-level implementation. Mm-hmm. That is also linked to financial inclusion strategy, Maya declarations, and the peer learning program where the SME Finance Compact was part of it. So I think we have the challenge to show that while we have indicators to track progress, we have the principles, we have analytical work on SME, including agri-finance, access to finance for women-owned businesses, SME policy assessment tools, financial literacy assessment. So we have all these different tools. But I think now it's to show progress. The only way we've done it so far was by implementing the SME Finance Challenge, where we had, I think from the G20 side, about mobilized just through the GPFI about 23 million, but in additional more than around 120 million came from development finance institutions to implement the winners of this challenge. The winning proposals. But I think for all of us, the challenge is right now really to see how the analytical work help countries to make progress towards financial inclusion. I think that's maybe a shared challenge we have to prove it and show it. And yep.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We still have a tiny bit of time here. Susanne, just a quick question. It could result in a long answer, but I think we can be quite brief on that. How do you see the future of the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion? We understood this is a platform that was put together to actually bring all global partners around the table to make things happen. Now, the G20 is a really powerful political body that can drive agendas, but it's not an implementing body, right? So when do you think is their job done in a way, or is it going to be permanent as a body? How do you see that for the future?
Well, I see a bright future, generally and optimistic, no. Mm-hmm. But you're right in the sense that G20 activities mainly initiate, convene, mm-hmm. but the GPFI is a bit of different because it's a partnership which was created for the purpose to have a broader platform that is not only embracing G20 but non-G20 countries and other stakeholders. And I can't say that this will be eternally, but it can be taken up by other institution. And if you have a universal access, we would be saying, great, we can go home. But right now, I think there is still a need, and I think a lot of complementarity in our efforts where we can fruitfully work together. And I think at the beginning of the AFI opening, I think it was mentioned that there is a strong community. There are also friends and partners. And I think there is in the financial sector development a community which is smallish. You know each other to a certain extent, but I think that the biggest, the huge chance to make a difference, because you trust each other, you're working together. And I hope to see the GPFI basically expanding, embracing more non-G20 countries and increasing it out, expanding its outreach also to the private sector and other stakeholders. And I think in that we have to work a bit more to embrace other stakeholders more systematically to make a difference.
Yeah, thank you very much, Susanne, for this quick update on the G20. I mean, on behalf of AFI, I would like to thank you, not only for this update and your coming here, but also for the support of the G20, of the good collaboration. And certainly, I have a question, is it? No, I thought you were, okay. Certainly for the collaboration, and particularly, I must say also for the support from the German government to AFI, because actually the work AFI is doing under the SME finance work stream and part of the grant program has been taken up by Germany. So we are very happy that also your government actually saw this as a priority and put additional funding so that we can do our job. So thank you very much.